The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour.
ChatGPT did become the world's most downloaded non-gaming app.
Literally the job of everyone in government to address the media and the public.
What are your thoughts, audience? What are your thoughts on Zandy Silva as the deputy PLP leader?
A community that can't feed itself is a community that doomed.
What you may not know, though, is that Bermuda, we have a connection with Epstein, too.
Things that people are doing right, the youth are doing right, that is not being advertised enough.
When you see your access to U.S. dollars disappear, that's when you have a problem.
If you've got a town in the UK with a similar sized population, this place absolutely outshines it.
It's Thursday, the 9th day of April, 2026. I think it's the 9th. No, it's the 9th day of April, 2026. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House, Lindo's People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. I'm Jamal Hartman. Folks, how you doing? It's Friday, Junior. It is the day before the end of the traditional work week. How's everyone feeling? How's your week been going this so far? Hopefully you got over the hump and you are about to end the traditional work week on a high. I know it's been good over this side, man. It's been good. We've had some good conversations this week, and it's just going to get better today. Suzanne Ingham says, good morning, Jamel. Grateful to be in your TDH house. It's our TDH house, not mine. It's ours. It's a super awesome day to be alive. Indeed, Suzanne, indeed. We appreciate you. Well, greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome Omar Dill on from the Free Democratic Movement. Really looking forward to the conversation with Omar, one of the most brilliant brothers who's chosen to get into politics in Bermuda. And always a great conversation. So looking forward to discussing where the FDM stands on some of Bermuda's pressing issues of the day. The Daily Play is going to be a Name That Place today. All right, Name That Place. So you don't want to miss this one. I'm sure you've got this. All right, you've got this. Every last one of you should know the answer to this. Yeah. Also, don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, folks. Claire Warner says, good morning, Jamel. Good morning, Bermuda. Good morning to you, Claire Warner. Hopefully you are doing well over in the Philippines, if I remember correctly. Folks, questions of the morning are going to be very simple. It's a big conversation taking place this morning. I almost want to make you guess what it's going to be, but we're not going to do that. Reason for it, there are so many things, always things happening in and around our community that we can discuss. But one thing in particular is CARICOM. Head or heart? How do we decide on CARICOM? We're now having a serious national conversation about whether Bermuda should become a full member of CARICOM. One of the key arguments being put forward is about deepening cultural ties. And let's be honest, that resonates with a lot of people. Shared history, shared ancestry, shared identity. For many Bermudians, especially those with Caribbean roots, that connection isn't political, it's personal. But here's the real question. Is that enough? Because joining CARICOM isn't just about culture. It's about economics, immigration, labor mobility, international relationships, and a long-term national strategy. The government itself has put out a green paper saying this decision requires facts, understanding, and public input, not just feelings. And even urged caution. This decision cannot be based on emotion alone. It has to be grounded in what's best for Bermuda's future. Because once you move from associate member to full member, you're no longer just in the room, you're at the table. But you're also bound by more rules, more obligations, more expectations. So today we're asking, very simply, what do you need to know in real terms to believe full CARICOM membership makes sense for Bermuda? And also, is cultural connection enough? Or does this decision require something much deeper? So those are your questions of the morning. What do you need to know to believe full CARICOM membership makes sense for Bermuda? And is cultural connection enough reason for Bermuda to join CARICOM? Give it some thought. We'll be right back to continue the conversation.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
All right, folks, this is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. What do you need to know to believe full CARICOM membership makes sense? And is cultural connection enough reason for Bermuda to join CARICOM? Now, I've already been very transparent about my feelings with CARICOM. I don't see why I don't see why we shouldn't consider full membership. But I absolutely appreciate those with questions. I absolutely understand those who have reservations. I actually, while I can't relate to those who have some of the questions they have, I get it. I get it. I do. I am not in politics. And so what I say in terms of, yeah, I would just say do it. But I'm not in politics. I don't rely on being popular or making popular decisions or, people making people feel good. I don't rely on that to decide what I'm going to do. However, the government has their work cut out. They have their work cut out because people are still looking for tangible benefits and they don't feel like they're getting tangible benefits. Now, personally, I feel like the tangible benefit simply could be having a stronger connection to countries in the region. I see a lot of loud mouths, people questioning things that if they read the green paper, it's in there, right? Unbelievable. Like some people saying, oh, well, what about our relationship with the U.S.? Well, have you read the green paper? Right? So what CARICOM actually is, it's, for those who may not understand, it's a regional economic and political bloc of Caribbean nations. Bermuda has been an associate member since 2003. The government is of the belief that full membership equals deeper integration and participation. What changes with full membership? Bermuda would move from participation to decision-making power. Potential access to the Caribbean single market opportunities, regional programs, education, development, trade. Now, there are some who say, well, we can do this without becoming a full member. Now, the case for what you'd need to believe it makes sense, right? So to support it, people would likely need clarity on what are the economic benefits as far as trade opportunities and business expansion. From a labor perspective, will it help fill workforce gaps? From a social policy, education, health, regional collaboration, what are the benefits? Cost versus benefit, like the $2 million contribution annually, relatively small, but still a cost, right? Now, the case against it what concerns people is the impact on immigration and labor market. Well, I find that one fascinating. And yes, I'm going to share my bias in this. They've already said there will be no free movement of people, right? And I believe Bahamas doesn't have that either. But even so, we just had some hospitality leader or restaurant owner, whatever you want to call him, crying out for government to lower the standards for English tests to bring on more non-Bermudian workers. And well, you have a whole group of English-speaking nations part of CARICOM. I believe there's a little racial something undertone going on there, but that's just my personal opinion. Some more against it. Again, people are questioning what will happen with the relationship with the United States, Bermuda's biggest partner, biggest trading partner, I believe 70+%. Again, valid question, but they did address that in the green paper. Maybe the government needs to communicate that on the surface a bit more with people. Competition, tourism, and businesses, whether Bermuda's economy aligns with CARICOM economies, limited trade currently with the region. Now, I've had people say, well, how would we ship stuff from the Caribbean? Like, we don't even have any direct routes and it'll take longer to get here. And I'm just like, why are we so stuck in the mindset that we have? And I'm not saying the government's had these conversations or this is the way the government thinks, but this is the way I think. You've got Bermuda Air. Well, I don't hear much about them anymore, but hopefully their flights are filling up. But if they're not, that's an opportunity for the government possibly to work with them, flights once a week from the region with goods. I mean, I remember when I was slinging bags at the airport many years ago, and the amount of produce that used to come on the airplane back then. But I think we need a mindset shift and to understand that it's possible. Just because this has always been the way doesn't mean that we can't find another way. Anyway, the emotional argument is cultural identity, shared Caribbean heritage, historical and family ties, government framing shared values and social alignment. The reality check, even government says people need facts before deciding. And critics say emotion cannot replace analysis, which is very fair. It's fair. So again, question of the morning for you all. What do you need to know? What do you, Bermudians, what do you need to know to believe full CARICOM membership makes sense for Bermuda? But also, just a yes or no, is cultural connection enough reason, in your opinion, for Bermuda to join CARICOM? Yes or no? Let's go to the audience. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, no, Bermuda government has got to do better than this. They need to show tangible benefits. Culture is too passive. Okay. Dorian says, government needs to lay out exactly what full membership entails. Also, the Gibbons Company Group and other companies have invested heavily throughout CARICOM. They need to be interviewed. Here's the thing. I agree with both of you. I agree with both of you. And I believe the government's response will say, well, those answers are in the green paper. However, my loving comment or advice to the government would be, people don't read like that. If you're going to have these town halls, or honestly, stop the emotion. The emotion part's done. It's done. Those who are on board at this point are on board. Those who are against are against. Now you need to reframe it. Now, again, I'm no expert in this, but what I am is a human being, and I'm on the receiving end. I am not a part of cabinet caucus. I'm not a public servant. I'm just a Bermudian, right? I am a believer in CARICOM membership, but I understand those who are continuously saying they don't understand the tangible benefits. I get it. It's no different, in my opinion, from how the PLP as a political party runs on emotion. not always tangible benefits. You know, well, we're not those guys, or the racial thing. I get it. And again, folks, I'm not against CARICOM, but the government has to you at the end of the day, I'm not a politician, right? But you have to respond to what the people are asking for when you choose politics. You have to. Or, well, if you don't, there's consequences for that. Dr. Anthony Richardson says we need to be careful with the issue of culture. How will the government prevent our culture being drowned out or extinguished by other Caribbean cultures? What protections will they put in place? I'm going to say it. I remember some years ago when Jason Zagdeo and his team had the Passion Truck in the Bermuda Day Parade. And I'll never forget the reaction of people as if Stoker was replacing Bermuda traditions and heritage. And obviously years later came Bermuda Carnival on Heroes Weekend. I get what you're saying, Dr. Anthony Richardson. But what I would say to that is that in the Caribbean, each country, each island has their own cultural traditions. It's up to the people of each one of the jurisdictions to maintain those cultural traditions. I put that on the people. I get what you're asking, though. Judith Welch says, no, cultural connection is not enough. Folks, this is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. We're asking you, what do you need to know to believe full CARICOM membership makes sense for Bermuda? And is cultural connection enough reason for Bermuda to join CARICOM? Is cultural connection enough reason for Bermuda to join CARICOM? Amari Simon says, I would need to know what other discussions are going on. Our Middle East advisor, other CARICOM nations too. Oh, right. Thought about the Middle East advisor. Says, yeah, the Middle East advisor advises other CARICOM nations too. Yeah. I think that's a fair, that's fair, Amari. So you're of the belief, based on me reading that the government isn't being transparent enough. You feel like there's more that needs to be shared with the people. Is that what I'm getting? Dr. Anthony Richardson says, with this approach, focusing on culture, it appears as if the government is trying to pull one over the population. The optics are not good. And unfortunately, optics are a thing. What are your thoughts, though, audience? What are your thoughts? Again, this is on you, right? The Minister of Home Affairs, the Honorable Alexa Lightbourne, held a town hall earlier this week where I believe there were about 80 people in attendance, and they spoke about full CARICOM membership. And based on the responses so far, people are just not buying it. It just seems emotional. I'm going to tell you what I feel, where I feel the government is getting it wrong. You're giving racist people legs to stand on. Sales is not something you need to go to school to be good at. Anyone who has done sales would know that. But one of the things that you learn in doing sales is you answer the objections of the potential client before they can ask the question, right? And I feel like, again, I'm no political expert, but I don't think people need to be political experts to understand that the government has a responsibility, unless they just don't care. Honestly, unless you're going to be Donald Trump and just do what you want and not care about what people think, just do it. That's fine. But if not, the government has a responsibility to prove or share beyond reasonable doubt, almost like a court case, why this makes sense. Unfortunately, you can't have the Jamal Hartman attitude, like, whatever. I'm doing what I believe is best. Remember, I've been on this show and you all can hold on to it. I don't necessarily believe in democracy. I don't. I don't believe that everyone's vote is equal because everyone doesn't read, everyone doesn't understand. Everyone doesn't have the same interest. This is true. We're not honest about that. So I don't necessarily believe in democracy. So you can hold on to that. Now, will my mind change? Possibly our minds change. People change political parties, ideologies all the time. But at this moment, I don't necessarily believe in it. I don't. But again, I am not in politics. I've never thrown my head in the ring. And if I did, my mindset would have to change based on the so-called democratic political environment that we have. Let's go back to the comments. Again, questions, folks. What do you need to know to believe CARICOM membership, full CARICOM membership, makes sense for Bermuda? And is cultural connection enough reason for Bermuda to join CARICOM? This is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Michael Daniels says, I wonder what would CARICOM's expectations be of Bermuda? Okay. I think that's an appropriate question. Maybe we can have some folks from CARICOM, maybe the heads of CARICOM, come on. I did read something the other day that, actually yesterday, a vote was taken in CARICOM. There's some controversy to keep someone in a position, and other people are unhappy about it. And that's just part of it. I don't care for people focusing on the negative, because that happens everywhere. There are people who are going to be against it, for it, whatever. What I care about is what it means for Bermuda and her people. That's it. Holly Rich says, no, cultural connection, not sufficient. I'm interested in total cost. Don't believe the $2 million sum is it. Also, benefits stated not sufficient to agree to this right now. Suzanne Ingham says, no, culture is not enough to join. We've got King of the North. WKD Lama says, I want to know what the tariff rate will be when we import non-CARICOM goods. Okay. And Charles H. Jefferson II says, while I believe that we need to maintain our Caribbean connections, I'm not convinced that there's enough difference between full and associate membership besides the higher price tag. Can we afford it? I mean, the government will say $2 million is drop in the bucket, but not based on how so many Bermudians are living. Can we afford it? I think these are necessary questions. I think it's fair to ask the questions that people are asking. I really do. I think the questions are fair. I don't know, man. This is an interesting one. All right, folks. That's your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. And don't worry, we've got Omar Dill from the FDM coming up, and we're going to talk about this as well. The FDM, Omar, they put something out on CARICOM. It should be in the Royal Gazette today, and we're going to discuss it. We are going to discuss that. I know a lot of people say, oh, after the election, last two elections, I haven't heard from the FDM. Well, they've been there. There have been numerous articles from Brother Quentin Sherlock, Omar Dill, and others. So I'm really, really looking forward to this discussion this morning. And hopefully you all engage. And I would encourage people, if I haven't mentioned it on this show because I just don't like messy and drama and BS, but Bermudians were up in arms about roaches being found at a restaurant in Bermuda this week. And someone said to me, you've got an education system crumbling, healthcare skyrocketing, CARICOM conversations going on. And this is what we're talking about. And I said, do people realize how many insects crawl on their produce from the time it leaves a garden to the time it reaches their homes? Like, what are we doing? We're all, I mean, if it's for entertainment, fine, have a laugh. But really? And then the other side of that. So then the restaurant loses business, and you all may say, well, they don't hire Bermudians anyway. Beside the point. Restaurant loses businesses, jobs disappear. And then what? We are an interesting people, man. We really are. Let's show some love to Titan Express and Secure.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Titan Express delivers safe, professional, and reliable transportation and tours across the island. From island tours to cultural experiences, they set the standard. And Secure is your go-to for property management, waste management, and residential and commercial services. Visit securebda.com. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is their commitment to you.
Alrighty, folks. We've got a few days to, it's Jumbo Day. I think that's the elephant. Or is that Dumbo? It's National Mature Women's Day. Yeah. It's National Name Yourself Day. Name Yourself Day. And it's National Alcohol Screening Day. Well, I want to go with Name Yourself Day. Audience, if you could rename yourself, what would you name yourself? What would you name yourself? It's an interesting one. If you could rename yourself, what would you name yourself? If I could rename myself, I would definitely eliminate my last name because it's not mine. And props to those who actually go through the process of changing their names, but I've already had my last name changed to make it even more European, but that's another show. But what would I name myself? Man, I don't know, audience. I don't know. I don't want to say X because, Malcolm X, but I'd probably just do like Prince, a symbol. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to go through the ancestral books of names and get something that suits my personality. That's what I'd probably do. So I don't have a name right now, but I would have to go through an ancestry book of names and choose one that suits my personality. But obviously, you all love your names, your European names, and so you probably won't change anything. We're going to take a quick break, folks. In the meantime, if you're streaming with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. We're going to continue the conversation next as we bring our guests in for the day. We've got Omar Dill from the FDM. We're going to be talking all things Bermuda, some of Bermuda's most pressing issues, as well as this the CARICOM situation. So stick with us. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back in a few.
Take a look at our workbook for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
What lasts isn't what you buy, but what it becomes. With the HSBC MasterCard credit card, every spend quietly adds to a story shaped by intention and offers what matters most. Support that meets you where you are. Protection that preserves what you choose. Confidence for the unexpected. Peace of mind wherever your story leads. Start your next chapter. Use your card today. HSBC is licensed to conduct banking and investment business by the Bermuda Monetary Authority.
Bermuda, there's nothing like a home-cooked meal, especially when you can feed the whole family without stretching your wallet. With the affordable Bermuda basket, you'll find savings on everyday staples like rice, chicken, corn, and more. Everything you need to make a good meal for less. Shop the Bermuda basket at Lindo's, Marketplace, the Garden Market, and the English Market. Visit costofliving.gov.bm to see the full list of goods and start planning your meals. This is a message from the Ministry of Home Affairs.
What if the age that really matters isn't the one on your ID? You probably know your chronological age, the number of candles on your last birthday cake. But there's another kind of age that may be even more important, your biological age. This reflects how old your body truly is at the cellular level. It is influenced by your genes, your environment, and the choices you make every day. Two people can both be 40 years old on paper, but one may have the body of a healthy 30-year-old, while the other is biologically closer to 50. The difference? Lifestyle choices on nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise, and exposure to toxins. That means you have some control over your biological clock, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when it comes to aging, it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. Want to know your predicted biological age today? Download the free Carry Genetics app and fill in the lifestyle questionnaire.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Jamel Hartman here. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC, Bermuda Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. Folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Without further ado, we're just going to jump into it. Let's bring in our very special guest for the day. Been too long, been too long. Let's give a warm TDH welcome to Omar Dill from the FDM. Greetings, good brother.
Yes, morning. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I want to ask you something real quickly. It's National Name Day or whatever. If you could change your name, what would you change it to?
If I could change my name, what would I change it to? I let the people pick. You don't pick your name to begin with.
Okay.
I feel picking your own name is a bit of an ego thing. I heard you talk about the Malcolm X thing, and even the Malcolm X thing, I think the X is just supposed to represent X, which is the unknown, which is whatever you want it to be. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I would have to. It's when you say that, it's like picking your nickname. That's weird. That would be weird to pick your nickname. Tell people exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I don't particularly like my last name. So it ain't too many people who look like me with this last name. So it's something that I would definitely replace with something else. But as far as my first name, I don't know. I'd have to go through the ancestry books, like I said, and see, what the ancestors say I align with. But anyway, thanks for doing this. It's definitely, as I said, been too long, Omar, in terms of having a conversation with yourself or anyone from the FDM. But before we jump into the discussion, because I definitely want to get right into a couple things with you, just remind people of, a bit about your background and your role with the FDM.
So I'm currently serving as the chairperson of the FDM. Background-wise, employment, hobbies. I like boxing. I'm a registered farmer. I currently work for the registered charity Home 1022. So I like to do a bit of everything, to be honest. I was a fireman for 5 years, an airport fireman. I worked as an air traffic controller for 2 years. I worked at Child and Family Services at the Boys Home for a couple of years. So I really just enjoy starting at the back of the class, starting at the back of something that I'm not the best at, and working my way up, learning, reading, practicing, and just honing certain crafts. And I think that all comes full circle to my role now, and from a FDM point of view, I should say, because it's dealing with people, being able to be broad, and just being able to put myself in different people's shoes to just try to really figure out, how can we get to the bottom of this issue?
Indeed. And for those tuned in today who may not be familiar with the FDM as it stands? Where does the party currently stand, and what does it represent in Bermuda's political landscape?
So currently, I would say we stand, how I would class it, as a bit of a thought leader. So we've put a lot of time and effort into developing policies. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is that our policies kind of are serving as more of like a measuring stick to many of our island's issues. We've also had the ability to influence policy with various ministers in this current election cycle or this current term, actually drawing from our policies. We had Diallo Rabin to use a couple of our things as it relates to planning. We have Alexa Lightbourne trying to action a couple of things as it relates to her portfolio. So we really have attempted, and I think we've done a really good job at laying down a measuring stick of what Bermuda should be trying to accomplish in each particular issue: housing, education, the economy, healthcare, the environment, et cetera, et cetera.
You mentioned Alexa Lightbourne. Let's speak about something within her ministry, the CARICOM Green Paper.
Yes.
What is the FDM's position on potential full membership, and how do you believe it would impact Bermuda?
So before we get into the specific position, what I would say is the CARICOM conversation is, from our view, less about CARICOM and more about a lot of the issues that the government is facing or dealing with or trying to deal with, right? People have issues with CARICOM in particular because they don't understand what it is or what it's not. And that's not the people's fault. You know, the government hasn't really done a good job at inspiring trust, that feeling like it's been a transparent conversation. Is CARICOM in the interests of the people, right? So I think that's the starting point. So in today's paper, you will find a couple of articles from the FDM just trying to explain what CARICOM is and what CARICOM isn't. What are the pros? What are the cons? And I think that is the first step at this quote unquote green paper stage that we're at. So that's how I would answer it in the first instance. In the second instance, I think the conversation today is actually really relevant. You're speaking about your last name. We're speaking about, who we are and things like that, culture. And that's a factor as it relates to culture. Would you change your last name to a Chinese last name? Right. We have the king coming to Bermuda in next month or this month. I'm not even sure what the date is. I'm not paying attention to the king, but the king has power because of culture, strictly only because of culture. He is the highest representation of the Anglo-Saxon or the English culture, right? So culture is very important, and we shouldn't overlook it. But we also need to explain exactly what it is and what it's not. It's very much been explained by the government as a very soft, friendly, lovey-dovey type of concept, when it's really a lot more to culture. Culture is, for example, the Newport Bermuda race. Does anybody know why we currently have the Newport Bermuda race, right? That is a factor of culture. That is our history. That is a pirate from I think it might have been the late 1800s, right? Who used to circumnavigate the Cape of Africa, come back with all his treasures, stop in Bermuda, go over to Rhode Island, right? So these cultural aspects should never be underestimated. They underpin almost everything that we are as a people.
And I think the concern is, from some people, it seems, with the green paper, is they understand and appreciate the cultural aspect, but they're looking for something more tangible. They're talking about, benefits beyond the feeling.
Yes.
Speak to that.
Yeah. So again, when we talk about the education of this whole conversation, how we've broken it down is that it's not one question. We have to really break it up. Number one, the first question is the CARICOM things that the government is pursuing is very simple. It's either we are currently an associate member. Do we want to become a full member? The only difference in those two things are full members get to vote in all of the heads of government, all of the little meetings and things like that. Now, that doesn't appear to have any real benefit to the average Bermudian. Government should say that, if that is the case. The secondary questions are, CARICOM does come with a lot of extra things that only full members can take advantage of. Some of those things are movement of goods, movement of services, immigration and labor related things. So there's actually 5 different regimes that specifically speak to the things that full members can take part of. But before we get to that conversation, again, educating people, the UK government has actually granted Bermuda the ability and permission to negotiate goods, services, labor-related things, agriculture-related things, technical, education. So a pretty hefty basket of the abilities of the government to negotiate. These permissions were granted as early as 2009. So it then becomes a question of, well, does the government have the will to try and improve in some of these things that they say maybe CARICOM can do? Because CARICOM can take care of all of those things that I mentioned through their CSME regime, but government can also do these things in absence of CARICOM. And again, this is not about saying we should do one or we shouldn't do the other. Right. It's about transparency so people can actually know what's going on, know what's on the table, know what it's really between. Even when we talk about labor and the quote unquote free movement of labor, it's not an open door versus a closed door, right? Many CARICOM countries have many different rules about how they deal with labor. I think only 4 CARICOM countries have the free movement of everything, goods, services, people, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody else, they make their own rules. And I think that's what the government is trying to say, is that they want to make their own rules. They don't want to partake in a lot of the CARICOM, CSME things, but then it begs the question, well, why do you want to be a part of it? Right? So again, transparency, it really comes down to the competence of government. I think in Bermuda, we're looking around, we see our roads, we see our education system over the last couple of years, we see the crime, we see housing, the issues go on forever. And we ask ourselves, if we're struggling as a country on these issues throughout the island, what makes my government worthy of going on a bigger stage and acting in the national interest of the average person? So it's not so much a CARICOM discussion. In my opinion, it's a competence in government discussion. It's, do I trust my officials to act in my best interests?
And I think that answers the question on independence as well. I don't think it's necessarily an independence conversation. I think people are like, do we trust these folks, this organization, to lead us to independence or govern us as an independent nation? So I've always felt that way over the last 15 to 20 years. But that said, just to wrap up the CARICOM part, what role do you believe race plays in how people feel about CARICOM? Full membership.
And I want to take it back to what we started to talk about. I would say culture is more important than race in this conversation. Much more important. They have similarities. People of certain races maybe have the same culture, but in the Caribbean, for example, you go to Jamaica, you have Chinese Jamaicans, you have German Jamaicans, and they are Jamaicans. They cook the jerk chicken, they speak in the accent, they know the culture, they are the culture. The same thing Bermuda. We have white Bermudians, we have Portuguese who are Bermudian through and through. They might not be Black, but they are of our culture. So I think when we speak about what does CARICOM and race, it's more about culture and CARICOM. And I think most of us in the story of us, as I don't know how the government intends it, but when I see it, the story of us is all of us who are Bermudian. We have a shared culture, and the government is trying to connect that to CARICOM. But I believe in this shared culture, we have a distrust of us. I've never heard someone question how much we pay for the governor to be in Bermuda. Anybody know what that number is? How many millions a year do we pay for the governor? Nobody would even bat an eye. We accept that culture, and that culture has had major benefits for Bermuda as a, with the free movement of people to being British citizens. What about education as it relates to Canada? That cultural relationship, being able to hop over to America because we've got, that customs clearance right in Bermuda, or immigration clearance, I should say. So these cultures have influenced Bermuda, American, Canadian, the UK, and we have no problem with it, right? And I think at one point in our history, back in the 70s, the 80s, I think it was very similar. We had direct flights going to the Caribbean. Tourism was booming. Our culture was strong. I mean, I was speaking to somebody the other day, I remember waking up on Good Friday and the sky was full of kites, full of kites. It hurts me every Good Friday when I look up in the sky and I don't see kites. I look at that as Bermuda has lost its culture. Bermuda is not what it used to be. Now, we have people who are working very hard to keep it alive, whether that be Gumbies and things like that. But our culture is running thin. It makes me personally sad about that part. So go ahead. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no. I that you took my discussion for tomorrow. I'm not lying. I literally have it. Speaking about that, because I was talking to someone about the same thing regarding that. But I think the bottom line is culture is very sensitive. It's sacred, and I think there's a number of issues, and I mean, we can literally have a conversation just about CARICOM. I do agree, with Dorian says, ouch, Mr. Dill is doing an excellent job in explaining the benefits of joining CARICOM. But I want to shift gears real quickly with you because there are some other pressing issues in Bermuda right now: education, healthcare, crime. Where do you think Bermuda is falling short, and what solutions is the FDM putting forward as it relates to those three in particular?
Bermuda is definitely falling short. It segues briefly back to the culture issue, but the CARICOM issue. Bermuda is falling short because do we trust our representatives, our leaders, to address these issues? Housing, do we trust our housing minister to solve this issue with urgency? Do we trust our education minister to solve this issue, right? So it's a competence issue, it's a trust issue, and I think most of the things that we're dealing with kind of all circle back to that one root cause of we've been modeling this thing for a while, right? I'm involved in politics because I'm like, well, somebody has to try and do something. So from an FDM point of view, we've released which issue you want to start with first? Housing?
Let's do housing.
So yeah, we released the housing policy late 2025. What were we in, 2026? Sorry, late 2024, October 2024, we released the housing policy. And it's basically a step-by-step measuring stick. FDMBDA.com, you can view the housing policy in full, but it's a step-by-step measuring stick of how we would solve the housing issue and why do we have a housing issue. And you've seen a lot of commentary around from international business, from Chamber of Commerce, from the government. And at the end of the day, it's a supply issue. Now, we know we have less people on the island, but when we say a supply issue, a landlord has to rent a property for it to count as active supply. Currently, due to the Landlord and Tenant Act, which we have that in our policy and it needs to be amended, which the Minister of Home Affairs, I believe she is, Alexa Lightbourne, is currently trying to amend that law. But that is the number one thing that should be done to fix our housing issue. Currently, landlords do not feel like they have any control over their properties. People are moving out. There's a lot of damages. The cost of renovations is very expensive. So landlords, for the most part, are choosing to not rent out their apartments to Bermudians. That lack of supply is increasing the demand. The increase in the demand is increasing the prices. It's really basic fundamentals. The government cannot build its way out of the housing issue. In our plan, we list a bunch of different solutions on how they can try and arrest this issue. One of those issues is government has no less than 20, 30 derelict buildings. I'm just using a conservative number. Government could easily today put out a tender for a peppercorn rent 20-year lease. We have 20-year leases all over the island for certain things, tourism developments, et cetera, et cetera. Government can put a 20-year lease out, say, hey, look, developers, if you can turn this property into a residential property in a certain amount of time to be put on the market at a certain price point, you can have it for $1 per year. No cost to the taxpayer. And now we have a building that was formerly deteriorating or derelict that's now back in active use. And in 20 years' time, the government can take it back over. That developer would have made money because at the end of the day, nobody's doing anything for free. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. So that's just one example. And again, we have a full policy from reducing land tax. It's a full, I think it's 14-step plan that we have. Some of those steps, as I mentioned, Diallo Rabin has done one or two things as it relates to planning. Alexa Lightbourne is doing one or two things in her ministry, but it's a comprehensive plan.
As I'm listening to you, and just on the housing, and we'll get to the other issues, but it'd be wrong of me not to follow that up. And I think some in the audience have this question as well, but it seems like going back in the conversation, I asked, what is the FDM stand in the political landscape? And you said, I think you said thought, right? You're the organization of thought, something to that aspect. And as I'm listening, I unless arrogance is the name of the day, why wouldn't what you're saying make sense? Why wouldn't we say, you know what, that's not a bad idea. Let's jump on this. This isn't about political party. This isn't about ego. This is about doing what's in the best interest of Bermuda. Now, I'm happy to hear you say that both Diallo Rabin and Alexa Lightbourne have taken some of the ideas and executed them, or at least put them into play. But why do you feel, one, I guarantee you not many people have read about what you're speaking of, right? I guarantee you that, because we just don't have a reading population, which is why I love doing this show where we can engage live. But secondly, what do you believe, or do you even care? What's the hold up or the reluctance for government to do some of this stuff, which, as the way you're explaining it, isn't rocket science?
Competence. Competence. I mean, even in the sense of the ministers, and I wrote an opinion piece in the Royal Gazette, I think early this year, that kind of explains it. When we had COVID, no stone was left unturned. It was immediate. It was straight to the point. Any administrative delay, we cut it out. It was a crisis. Government is not treating the issues that are crises today as crises. They are very laxy-daisy. I mean, we have a housing minister, which is great. He was given, $20 million to kind of fix some of our housing issues. But he hasn't released a plan publicly. So he was given $20 million to fix our housing issue with no plan. I mean, the election was 12 months ago, 13 months ago. The FDM's housing plan came out 16 months ago. How long? What are we waiting for? And the only thing that I can say is competence. If you don't care.
Yeah. Education seems to be the, I guess, the root of everything.
Oh, definitely.
What's the FDM? Give us the thought on education, the stance, the position. I think it's been shared numerous times within the news over the last few months that we now have more children in private institutions than public, which is just unbelievably crazy for a place like Bermuda.
Yeah, so I think that when we talk about education, we have to look at what's worked historically, what's the best practice currently, internationally, what are the institutions that do well. And when we look at all of those things, in Bermuda especially, we see that model of education that has always worked in Bermuda was the aided school type of model. That would have been the model that the Whitney Institute would have operated under. That would have been the model that the Berkeley Institute would have operated under. And that model is basically, you have a principal, you have a PTA, you have a board of governors, right? And those individuals who are connected to the students and that community, they really have that final say so in where we are headed. They are able to shift and move and change. So as it relates to the FDM, our policy is molded around that type of education. And again, this policy would have came out just under 2 years ago. And even in the last, let's say, 6 months or so, with a lot of the issues that the education system has been experiencing publicly, we've chosen the private route. So instead of getting in the newspaper and releasing a press release and making a fuss, so to speak, in a situation that's involving our children, right? We've chosen to go the more direct and quiet route. So we've tried to connect with the PTAs from every single school, the Bermuda Union of Teachers, the Principals Association, and we've presented ideas based on where we are right now. So that gives those institutions, again, the knowledge, the information to be empowered. So when you are in the room with the minister or the PS or the commissioner, you can really make informed decisions and do the best that you can do. And I'm not saying, when I say informed decisions, they already are the experts. Right? So we are just trying to lend our support and basically saying to them, here is our position, take what you need, leave what you don't.
Audience, you can continue to send questions and comments. I'll get to your questions and comments in a few. Healthcare. Healthcare is another big topic in Bermuda. We had a situation where, an insurance company basically they aligned or they bought out another insurance company. And now they've put out some things that have seemed to be unpopular. You have a government who people are working within the public service saying that their insurance is crap. You have, and we don't touch on this, but we have a very unhealthy population, which is leading to a higher health insurance costs. Where does the FDM stand on all of this?
And I'm just going to make a quick segue, fdmbda.com, fdmbda.com. Please, please, please go on our website, have a read of our policies. We have policies on all of the issues we've discussed thus far, and it really breaks it down for everybody to understand how simple it could be. And these are the things that I would encourage you to advocate for as part of your civic duty to ensure that your MP is holding, or you are holding your MP accountable, is what I should say. So from a healthcare point of view, our view is that many of the reasons for the increased costs of healthcare, for the mergers that we are seeing within the healthcare sector, if you have insurance companies who own pharmacies and doctors' offices, we see that as a response to the government's plans to try and move to universal healthcare. Universal healthcare is very expensive. Now, you can't put a price on people. You can't put a price on people's health. You can't put a price on education. You can't put a price on the bus system. These are all services, things that the government should be able to provide at a bare minimum. But we have to find that balance of how can we provide the best services while also reducing costs. Many of our healthcare costs actually start from government incompetence. 16 years ago or so, when the Paget, I believe the Paget Health Group signed a deal, the then minister was Zane De Silva, and there are elements of that deal that are still not disclosed today, but we do know that there are some very, very large fixed costs as it relates to healthcare. And because of that quote unquote bad deal, we have the hospital with the beautiful atrium, but not enough beds. And it's just a negative reinforcing cycle is what I would say we were in. So our plan seeks to move to a healthcare transparency. Our plan seeks to provide multiple things. Number one, transparency. When I walk into the doctor's office, I should be able to know exactly what this is going to cost before I get that $200, not including my copay, right? It's a bit of a shock every time. It should be transparency across all doctors' offices and pharmacies, so I can know specifically where I can go, what do I want to get, how much it's going to cost. Just the same way you go when you get a fish sandwich, right? You know exactly how much your extra toppings cost, how much certain services cost. They're also in the plan, it presents sorry, I'm not as well versed on the plan as I could be, but it presents ways to reduce your healthcare costs because of your health, i.e., staying active, going for runs, things like that. And then a very important one, a healthcare plan that moves with you. So currently, which is a problem, healthcare is tied to employment, which again, when you go back to Bermuda's history, it's kind of like a post-emancipation issue, right? So the employer used to clothe you, feed you, house you. If you got sick, that was on his dime. Post-slavery, our clothing, housing, healthcare is still tied to that employer or that slave owner, right? That's a problem. So we should be able to have healthcare irregardless of our employment status. And I think that is what the government is trying to kind of navigate when they talk about universal healthcare. But when we look around the world, I mean, I think Barbados is a good example. They actually have universal healthcare. Canada has universal healthcare. The UK has I would say, a form of universal healthcare. And there are many issues. In many cases in Barbados, for example, even though they have universal healthcare, if you don't have money, you're not getting healthcare. I mean, there are fees. So this is not, universal healthcare is not a one pill and we're fixed. So again, FDMBDA.com, please go and read through it, critique it, send us a message, get in contact with us if you think there's problems with it or if you like it. But we think it's a pretty good plan. It was developed, as with all our policies, by people in the industry with knowledge and know-how. So
Indeed. Let's shift to crime. We just had yet another gun murder in broad daylight 2 Sundays ago.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to be a situation that's slowing down. Last year, what would be considered 2 mass shootings in the United States happened in Bermuda. We had broad daylight shootings on Court Street. Where does the FDM stand on the current state of crime? And as someone said in the audience, I'll just read this before you answer. Charles H. Jefferson II says the government seems to be playing the whack-a-mole game when it comes to solving Bermuda's issues. Many of our issues are connected to other issues and cannot be solved in silos. When you look at the crime situation, obviously there is a connection to so many other issues, but where does the FDM stand on this?
Yeah, so Charles H. Jefferson, I think he hit the nail on the head. All of our issues are interconnected, and starting from education, if we have an education system that is not preparing children for the world, people are going to find a way to do it however they see fit. There was a 20-year-old charged with the most recent murders, and most of our crimes, you have 20, 21, 19 babies, right? That means there's something they didn't get. There's something that they didn't get. It's as simple as that. And I know we have a national gang violence reduction strategy, I believe it's called. And that does a pretty good job at describing what's going on. But what it doesn't necessarily do is give detailed about whose responsibility and how. And I think you had Desmond Crockwell on your show a couple of weeks ago, FDM candidate for the last 2 elections. You can see he does this from the heart, and he's given suggestions, right? We need more community focus. There's one big plan, and you got one guy, Dr. What's the doctor in charge of that program?
Bean?
Dr. Bean, Minister Bean, I should say.
Leroy Bean, Pastor Leroy Bean.
Pastor Leroy Bean. And what Desmond in particular has said is that Pastor Leroy Bean doesn't have influence in every neighborhood and segment in Bermuda. We need to break this plan down on a more community level and allow those in Somerset to deal with the Somerset issues, the people who have respect in Somerset, the people in Middletown, the people in St. George's, the people in Ordred, and let the communities, give the communities the power, the resources to solve some of these issues. And I would say a lot of these things come down to access to childcare, access to housing, proper education, right? Parents are struggling, which means children will struggle. There's a stat that the Family Center, a study, I should say, that the Family Center has done on adverse childhood events. And it kind of speaks to the reason why we're in the problems we're in with road traffic accidents, with violence, with sexual assaults, with suicides. It's all about the things that our children are going through at a young age. And until we solve those things, until we make real concerted efforts to arrest these things, and this is not a money issue. I just want to highlight that. You look at the budgets, $1 million here, $1 million there. Everybody gets $1 million. It's not an issue you can just throw money at. If it was about that, our education system, which has the biggest budget it's had probably ever, it would be perfect, right? Our national security budget, very large. Crime, the prisons, these have big budgets, but none of these things are improving. So a more community-centered approach, and that's FDM in general really advocates that a government with a head at the top cannot possibly see the issues under the table, right? So let's break this down a little bit and allow those who are more closer to the grassroots level to solve these issues, give them the resources. But that also means, like I mentioned with education, it also means you're not in front of the press. It also means you can't come and say you did it. You have to be you have to be humble enough to step back and allow the good work to just be done. It's not about the PLP or the OBA or the FDM. It's about community and grassroots and just getting the issue solved for the betterment of our country.
Yeah. There's some other issues. The price of utilities, the price of groceries. How has the FDM approached the cost of living and economic direction that would improve opportunities and outcomes for Bermudians?
Yeah, so we have an economic policy, fdmbda.com. We have an economic policy, and essentially what we're saying is that the biggest cost to the Bermudian public is the cost of government, hands down. That is a cost that can be controlled, but that is a cost that we all have to bear, not because we want to, not because I decided to go to the store and buy a BMW, or let me buy 6 apples instead of 4. The cost of government is something that we have to contend with no matter what. So if we can reduce those costs, it reduces the cost of the everyday Bermudian. That starts with debt reduction. So our policy position was, I believe it was 70% of debt should be used towards 70% of revenues, or the corporate income tax, I should say, should be used towards getting down the debt. The government pretty much lined up with what we suggested. Not saying they've done it because we suggested it, but just to say that how they operated in that particular idea was good. But there are some other things that could be reduced. There are the obvious things like the gaming commission that has no gaming, no casinos, I should say. There are various other government entities that get money that have not released audited statements, for example. So as a whole, government, and the Auditor General speaks on this very, very often. At least once a year, she releases a special report that details all of the deficiencies. So the FDM would definitely seek to follow everything she's saying. She is the expert on Bermuda's finances. And until we can get that spending kind of arrested, as I like to say, the cost of everything Bermuda will continue to go up.
I want to switch gears again. We started asking, where's the FDM stand? Currently, no seats in the House, but still relevant. People have complained for years that after the last 2 elections, we haven't heard from the Honorable Mark Bean or seen the FDM. That couldn't be further from the truth if people have been paying attention, especially since the last election. But that said, there's been noticeable instability within the One Bermuda Alliance, including a recent leadership change. How do you believe that creates space or opportunity for the FDM to grow?
That's a good question. How do I believe that creates space or opportunity for the FDM to grow? I would like to believe that, our opportunities hinge on us. I would hate to think that because they made a mistake and tripped, that it's an opportunity for us. I actually don't read too much into what they have going on. I really don't. I really have nothing to say about that kerfuffle. I think it was messy. I think it should have happened a bit better, but it happened, and that's their shop. I think all political parties that deal with people, they have issues. We see it within the PLP. People say things about every party. You have John Swan, the Independent Coalition. I think they call themselves. So I don't read too much into that issue, to be honest with you.
So basically it has no standing. It's the FDM needs to take care of itself.
Yes.
Go back to the audience. And the audience, if you have any questions or comments, send them through. Charles H. Jeffs II says, does the FDM housing plan address the probate issue as well? I agree with the derelict building to idea, given that many of these issues are interconnected. What are the FDM's thoughts on a master plan?
Yeah, so I would go on but I would advocate heavily to say that our housing plan is the only comprehensive housing plan on the island as it relates to political parties. It is the best beginning to end housing plan, end quote. FDMBDA.com. If it's not, call me a liar. And please let me know where it goes wrong. It discusses everything from the act to the fees to the cost of construction and reducing duty costs. By the way, we said that first as a policy position about reducing the cost of building materials. Our plans as a whole go further to say all duty should be reduced to a much lower level, right? So again, our thing is the government doesn't need as much money coming in if the government would stop wasting money on things that are not producing results. So our housing plan speaks to many of those things that have already been done, and we feel it should be done more.
Looking ahead, what does the FDM want to offer Bermudians that sets it apart from both the PLP and the OBA as a viable alternative?
We want to empower Bermudians, remind them who holds the real power in this country. So I just want to touch on the CARICOM thing because it's relevant when we talk about things like a referendum, right? For an issue on CARICOM. The people of Bermuda, it is your civic duty to hold your MP accountable. If you do not believe that member of parliament that you voted in is voting in your best interest, you need to make sure you remember that and hold that man accountable, or hold that woman accountable, hold that person accountable. There's no question about it. So the FDM is reminding people that they have the power, and if they are unhappy, we would like to present them with another option. That is a goal. And that, the PLP wasn't built overnight. It takes a while to get to the level of coverage and influence from a person by person in each candidate, in each constituency point of view, where everybody has a choice. But it also relies on the people to actually stand up, right? We had low voting turnout in Bermuda in the last two elections. One was because of COVID, obviously, but the most recent one wasn't. And that's people not doing their civic duty, but that's also people looking at government and being like, you guys don't care about us. You guys are not doing what we want you to do. So why should I turn out? But that's exactly why you should turn out, right? And that's exactly why you should make a choice that is different from the choice you've made over the last 15, 16, 20 years, because there is not a different choice, a choice that doesn't want to control you. You mentioned about what have you been active and things like that. And as I said, you had Desmond Crockwell on your show a couple of weeks ago. He never stopped doing great community work. Quentin Sherlock just opened a charity. Shalia Codrington's doing a community garden in Somerset. She's all involved in the advocating of the Birds Island community to try and stop some of those things going on. You have Kelsey and Thompson, the Gombe Queen, right? Teaching people how to make Gombe costumes. So we are heavily involved in our community, but we recognize that political parties shouldn't be doing things because I'm wearing a gold shirt or a blue shirt or a red shirt. Political parties should be people who care about their communities, that are doing things in their communities because they care about their communities, not for clout, not for the press conference, right? So that's what we're trying to bring to the table, is to say, that's what we represent. Let's make our country better. Let's get involved in our communities. You don't have to put on the shirt every day. You don't have to get in the front of a camera and do a press conference. Let's just make Bermuda better, because the power is in the people. It's not going to change because the minister said slow down on the roads. That means nothing to the people. It will change if the people love you, respect you, trust you, and you have a real connection to them. And you say, look, man, slow down. That will get people to slow down. But right now, politically, the government doesn't have that level of trust. So,
in closing, before you head out, social media seems to be a go-to because it's, where people feel comfortable. They don't have to leave their home or their place of comfort. It seems to be a place where people are comfortable expressing themselves. But how can we shift to get more people involved, like yourself and others, to get them to understand that they are the power? Power is the people, right? How do we get there? How do we get people? And I don't say this to be disrespectful. I'm just saying, how do we get people off the couch? How do we get people from behind the keyboards and, into the community to fight for themselves? How do we get that shift to take place?
I think that shift has already begun. That's why we had 108 candidates, right? That is the shift beginning to take hold. What I will say is that you don't fight a system with an individual. You fight a system with a system. So I would encourage, from that 108 candidates, get organized, join a political party, join the FDM is what I would say most definitely, right? But join a political party, because you go further together, right? That's an African principle. Again, we talk about CARICOM, connecting us back to that diaspora, connecting us back to those things, those principles, and that culture that really made us who we are today. Without the organization of a party in 1960s, two parties that organized in the 1960s, right? Bermuda wouldn't have made any progress at all, right? Organization is key. So that's what I would say to those candidates who were involved: get organized. To those people who are on social media individually, get organized. It doesn't have to be a party per se. It can be a social club. It can be a charity, right? But the more pockets of organization we have, hopefully we have less silos. And eventually we can come together as one and really get some of these things fixed.
Yeah, Renee Crockle says, absolutely, not all advocacy is loud. The impactful work happens quietly behind the scenes. Keep up the great work, Omar. But I want to say to that, because I've said to a couple of young people, a young organization that's been political, and one of the leaders in there, I've said for the last 3 or 4 years to this individual, you don't have to be loud to be effective. I recite that to this person regularly, that you don't have to be loud to be effective, especially in a social media era. Everything has to be loud. I love the FDM's approach, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. I appreciate that you put the information out there for people. My only concern is that we are, I'll just use the CARICOM thing. When Michael Dunkley put his post out yesterday, and I saw some of the responses, I may not agree with the government on a lot of stuff, but if I'm going to disagree, I'm at least going to go the same way how you, Omar, are saying, oh, it's on fdmbda.com. You're giving people an opportunity to read it. Whether we agree with the idea of the government pushing CARICOM, they put a green paper out to actually question things that the answers in that green paper. It tells me that confirms that people don't read it. People are led with emotions, and maybe that's why the government is taking an emotional approach. I want to wrap it up with the CARICOM conversation again, because I think that was the start of this convo. As it stands right now, and you don't have to answer yes or no, you could go in detail. Do you believe that the government is prepared to move forward with its bid for full membership, regardless of how the people feel? And if so, what next?
As of everything, I believe many of the consultations that currently take place in this country are performative. And I think many organizations will agree with that, whether it be taxi drivers, fishermen, farmers, et cetera, et cetera. It's very much performative. The government has all intentions of moving forward. And I believe that the main thing that the people should do is educate themselves. And that's what we've sought to do with our green paper. To kind of counter what you said, Jamal, I don't believe that the green paper actually informed people how it could have informed people, which is why we released one, so it can inform people better. So get involved. It is your civic duty to hold your MP accountable, as I said. And when that vote goes into the House, make note of if your MP has agreed with you or has backed you, or not. And act accordingly from that moment on. And that's with all issues. And there are many, many issues that have been passed that people do not agree with. And their MP is actively voting against their electorate. And it shouldn't work like that. So when Bermuda recognizes that, then I think we will see some change.
Indeed. Omar, this has been it's been a pleasure having you, honestly. Hopefully you all, like we had Desmond on last month, again, a brother who's been doing the work for years and years and years, yourself, Brother Clinton Sherlock, and also the latest, I think Ms. Calzine's been on before. I don't think we've had, from Booz Island, I don't think we've had her on. Yes. Yeah. I say this with love and appreciation. Thank you all for putting yourselves forward. I don't thank everyone for putting themselves forward, but there's a certain individual. You all don't have to do it. You don't. You all possess a wealth of knowledge, and my hope is that the Bermudian people actually engage you. Like, don't just read what you're putting out, but engage you. As I read your green paper, I actually would have to agree with your comment that you just made. That while I do think that the green paper the government put out answered some of the questions I saw in the Michael Dunkless post, it didn't answer the questions the way that the FDM's paper did, right? And so I encourage people, when you read this stuff, to then go to your MP or the government or whoever represents you and say, you know what, the FDM mentioned this, right? Not like you're stealing ideas from the FDM. This is public, right? And as Omar said, they've taken things before and it's worked. We don't want a PLP government, FDM government, or an OBA government. To quote Omar, we want a competent government. And I hope that is what people take away from this. We want a competent group of people who are leading this country. And if that means the FDM, that means the PLP, that means the OBA, so be it. What we need is people who are going to deliver what's in the best interest of Bermuda and Bermudian people. Omar, if someone wanted to reach out to the FDM outside of going to FDM BDA, is there an email or a phone number where people can touch base?
So you can call me directly, actually. You can call me 531-3276. And our email is vote at FDM. Let me not say the email wrong. Call me directly, because I might have the email wrong. And, if you have a wrong email, you're never going to get me. So my direct number is 531-3276. Send me a WhatsApp, call me, whatever the case may be.
All right. Suzanne says, amen to that. Competent leaders only, Bermuda first. Omar sounds like a premier, says Ms. Ellen Kate Horton. Clearwater says, enjoyed your show. I'll just say this real quickly. I would never say this publicly, but I'm going to say it. Omar is the first person, and this is not to disrespect others who've been on this show recently, but I didn't send him the questions prior to the show. He didn't know what I was going to ask him. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, brother. We'll talk soon.
Blessings. Have a good one. Thank you for having me.
Omar Dill, folks. If you appreciated that discussion and you're streaming with us, give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take a final break. Come back. I got a daily play for you and we'll wrap it up. Do not go anywhere. Stick with us.
Bermuda, there's nothing like a home-cooked meal, especially when you can feed the whole family without stretching your wallet. With the affordable Bermuda basket, you'll find savings on everyday staples like rice, chicken, corn, and more. Everything you need to make a good meal for less. Shop the Bermuda basket at Lindo's, Marketplace, the Garden Market, and the English Market. Visit costofliving.gov.bm to see the full list of goods and start planning your meals. This is a message from the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's loan guarantee program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda business starts here.
For over 70 years, Bermuda Pest Control has been protecting homes and businesses island-wide. We offer a full suite of services, including rodent control, termite fumigation, and general insect control and maintenance. Our team of experts will quickly and efficiently eliminate any pest problem you may have. With Bermuda Pest Control, you can enjoy a pest-free home in no time. We're committed to providing fast, reliable, and solution-driven services for our customers. It's what we've been doing since 1952. Call Bermuda Pest Control today and say goodbye to pests for good.
The Office of Consumer Affairs protects residents by promoting fairness, safety, and transparency in the marketplace across the island. We investigate complaints, manage recalls, educate the public, and enforce consumer protection laws to ensure fair treatment for all. Our team supports consumers by resolving disputes, providing guidance, and helping residents understand their rights and responsibilities. We work with businesses to encourage compliance, ethical practices, and trust, helping create a stable and competitive economy. Through education, enforcement, and outreach, Consumer Affairs helps keep Bermuda's marketplace safe, informed, and accountable.
Life moves fast, and so can the unexpected. When you insure your home, you need to know that your insurance company has your back. At Friesenbrook, let one of our friendly and professional agents give you that peace of mind. Because when you are covered, you are confident. Call us at 296-3600 or visit friesenbrook.bm to learn more.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Where is my oh, here it is. Anyway, welcome back to the show. Thanks again to Omar, Dill for stopping by from the FDM. Folks, again, if you are streaming with us and you appreciated that conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lenders, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075, ensuring we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. Folks, it is time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. If you haven't already, make sure you go to bermudatrivia.com and register. There will be a new edition of Shoe Buy. Yes, Shoe Buy Summer Edition will be coming out this summer, and if you don't want to miss out, you want to get on that list so that you know exactly when it's coming out. And also the Shoe Buy, the original edition, will be back in stores at the same time. So make sure you go to bermudatrivia.com and register so that you don't miss out with that. And follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right. It's, are you ready, audience? It's a name that plays today. And I said everyone will know this answer because this is a very Bermudian question. Audience, what is the only sea in the world without a coastline? I thought everyone would get this. Thank you, Michelle Grant. It is the Sargasso Sea. The only sea in the world without a coastline is the Sargasso Sea. Yeah, you got that. You got that. All right, folks, let's wrap it up. Final thoughts on the discussion regarding the green paper. The CARICOM issue. I actually look. I like to learn from people, and Omar made me think about something. The issue isn't CARICOM. I think I may agree with him. The issue isn't CARICOM. I just want people to. I know we're emotional beings. We are. But I've had many mentors and coaches who have pretty much made me a believer that we should never, ever make emotional decisions or decisions when we're in an emotional state. I appreciate that the government is pushing this. I appreciate that Minister Alexa Lightbourne is, trying to get this over the line. I agree with it. But it does sometimes come across predatory when we focus so much on the emotional appeal and not the tangible benefits. And my hope is that the argument can be changed, that they can look at what the FDM put out and make some adjustments. It's nothing wrong with educating people on an issue that you believe in. I'd encourage the government to do so. As it relates to the discussion with Omar, breath of fresh air. For me, it's not about agreement. It's about engagement and discussions and sharing ideas. And through engagement and discussions and sharing ideas, we hope that we can have solutions. I appreciate that the FDM has remained engaged. They have remained engaged. And I'd encourage the general public to remain engaged. It's interesting because I'll share this with you as I wrap it up. A friend of mine said to me right after the last election, the black guy works in the IB sector, and I probably shared this before. He said, I just have so many issues with the PLP, but a vote for the OBA scares me. White woman recently, a white Bermudian woman told me recently that Dr. Ewart Brown used to scare her. Right? And if we're in this space where we are afraid of voting for one or the other, and there's other options, in the words of many entrepreneurs, take the risk. Take the risk. Because if you don't, we'll remain in the same situations as always. As I said earlier, I'm a believer that many of us, if we were honest, we actually don't want the best political party. We actually want the best people, the most competent people to lead us. And I believe there are competent people who have put themselves out there politically who can do the job. But it's up to the people to ensure that all of our politicians who speak on our behalf, represent us, are competent enough to do the job. What do I mean by that? David Brett, the Premier of Bermuda, said he's leaving his job as Premier at the end of this year. And people were like, well, who's going to replace him? Not this person, not that person. The fact that we would vote for anyone who we don't believe can lead Bermuda says more about us, the electorate, than it does the people who are being voted in. Give that some thought. All right, let me give you some daily inspiration before we head out. This one here. Let's do this. From my upcoming book. Quote, we have a moral obligation not to be a burden to those who love us and or the ones we love. We have a moral obligation not to be a burden to those who love us and/or those we love. Yeah, do with that what you will, folks. Do not forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lenders, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airways with these most important community conversations. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, I'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. We've got Hazel Clark. Yeah. She'll be discussing life beyond Bermuda and Bermuda tourism. And she just released a brand new children's book that we'll be celebrating. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are out. Peace.